So you and the YouTube algorithm may not have missed me, but I am back. Let's just get into things. Apparently, Gen Z, in terms of finances, they don't work well together. So if you didn't know, Gen Z generally refers to the generation born between 1997 and 2012, and this generation is known for growing up through things like the development of the modern smartphone, online dating, TikTok, memes, and other noteworthy human inventions. Anyway, the oldest of this group, myself included, have entered adulthood and have to face adult problems like finances and what we're going to eat for dinner for the rest of our lives. Meanwhile, the younger ones are possibly still in middle or elementary school, so they're not super relevant in this. Anyway, for the older Gen Zers is, I'm not sure if that's a phrase, but how are they doing with money and finances, and how have finances changed as this generation has grown up? And also, have you bopped the like button? One thing to note is that the results that I'm going to refer to are from a survey of a few thousand people. So while that is a lot of people, it's obviously not enough to represent the entirety of Gen Z, but the results are pretty interesting. I just wanted to put that out there because studies and statistics can be misleading, and that's like a completely non-financial rant that could go on for an hour, so I'm not going to talk about that, but let's get on to the results. There were 4 key findings in this survey that, at least personally, were kind of interesting. One is that nearly half of Gen Zers say that a parent, guardian, or relative pay for their housing costs, while 42% of them say the same thing about health insurance. And while those numbers are high, I'm honestly not too surprised by them, especially because of this whole pandemic thing. As of July 2020, 52%, so more than half of young adults live with their parents, and I must humbly include myself in this statistic for the time being, but it's so much cheaper and more convenient to live at home while a lot of things are still virtual. Now, obviously, I can't say for sure because I don't know what is going on in the life of every possible Gen Zer out there. Honestly, I don't even know what's going on in my own life sometimes, but I believe some of the main reasons that might explain this large percentage of Gen Zers staying at home is 1, the pandemic, duh, and 2, the cost of moving out, because it can be quite expensive to A, move out, B, find a place, especially depending on where you're living. Another unfinancial related reason to this is that marriage rates and relationship rates have gone down drastically. For example, I think in 2018, 51% of Americans aged 18 to 34 said they didn't have a steady partner, up from 33% in 2004. So if people aren't in as many relationships, maybe they don't see a need to move out and like move in with a partner or something. That was quite a jump to a conclusion, but it made sense in my head, so I included it. The second thing is that 26% of Gen Z don't think young adults need to worry about building credit, and 28% think they don't need to worry about investing for retirement. If you can tell by the exasperated way I was saying that, I don't like this statistic at all. I'd like to see 100% of young adults working on building their credit and investing for retirement, but I guess a girl can dream. Having good credit allows you to get better interest rates on different types of loans, such as mortgage or auto loans. It also gives you a better chance of getting approved for different credit cards, and it makes it easier to rent an apartment. And lastly, having a good credit score gives you massive bragging rights. I mean, one day when my credit score is above 800, you'll definitely be hearing about it. I have made a video about credit, and it's going to appear in one of these corners, but credit has its complexities and nuances. To understand how to build your credit shouldn't be too difficult, and more specifically, what you can do to improve your own credit. And credit has nothing to do with income, so anybody can build their credit. Now, for the retirement part, while I disagree with people around my age not worrying about retirement, it makes a little bit of sense. When you're in your 20s, I say this as if it was past tense, but this is me, it's hard to think about retirement. I mean, who cares about having money 40, 50 years from now when you can spend it on cool things now, right? I honestly have nothing against spending a little on things and experiences that matter and bring joy, but indulging in such wants while ignoring your future self wastes something even more precious, in my opinion. Time. You've all heard it, was it compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world, but compound interest takes time, and small changes can make a really, really big difference. For example, let's take 2 extremes. Let's say Bob starts investing at age 18 and wants to retire at age 65, and he stays invested for 47 years. By contributing just $184 a month, at the end of that 47 years, assuming an 8% average return from the stock market, which has been the historical average return, that's going to be over $1 million. On the other hand, let's take Linda, who maybe doesn't start saving for retirement until age 40, and she also wants to retire at 65, so that would be 25 years. If she wanted to have the same $1 million at the end of the 25 years, she would need to invest $1,150, so $1,150 a month by starting later. Obviously, not every 18-year-old A has a job and B has a job that pays enough that they can put aside $184 a month, but this example just goes to show the earlier you start, the easier it is. Anyway, on to the next thing. Woohoo, there's light now. The third finding in this survey was that 41% feel anxious about their finances and 30% feel self-conscious about them. While these are high numbers, I kind of would like some more info. So, for example, what percentage of current millennials feel anxious about their finances? What about these numbers for millennials when they were our age? Without a comparison, it's hard to, compare how we're doing, because it's really hard to say what like an average percentage of people feeling anxious about their finances should be. I mean, ideally it's 0, but obviously that's not going to happen. Regardless of how we fare against other generations, this number is still pretty high. I don't have studies or facts to back this up, but the presence of financial content on social media, both helpful and unhelpful, probably adds a little bit to the anxiousness/self-consciousness. For example, like seeing an 18-year-old flexing online that they make millions of dollars a year trading Forex probably doesn't feel great for the average 30-year-old who makes around $47,000 a year. On the flip side though, there is more free educational content than ever before on finance, pretty much on any topic, and it hopefully helps people feel more confident and less anxious and self-conscious about their finances. But do these effects cancel each other out? Does one outweigh the other? Honestly, I'm not sure. Let me know what you think. Now, I'm not really sure where I was going with this point, but I suppose what I'm trying to say is that I don't know if Gen Z specifically is more worried about finances or if young adults in general tend to be worried about finances. So no matter the case, I want to try and educate people as much as I can about finance so they feel less anxious and self-conscious. So, on to the fourth point. 72% feel regret about their personal spendings at least sometimes, 54% feel regret on dining out, and 52% on food delivery. Okay, honestly, this statistic is not too surprising. Haven't we all bought something we regretted, like a shirt, a piece of technology, or like a lobster roll in New York City? The last one definitely is not from personal experience. And I think somewhere in the back of our minds, we all know that it's better to cook and eat at home. It's usually healthier, usually more cost efficient than going to eat out, but we still order food and get food delivered on occasion. Honestly, going out or having food delivered once in a while is a great experience, but it can become a pretty big financial burden if you do it a lot. So that's how Gen Z is doing, but how are we doing compared to other generations? Maybe Gen Z isn't doing great because people don't have everything figured out by the time they graduate high school and college. Some of these survey questions weren't that interesting. For example, the fact that fewer Gen Zers than other generations have written a check and visited a physical bank probably doesn't surprise anyone. This isn't really a sign of like less financial progress or whatever, but mostly a testament to the fact that technology has become integrated with finances. Most things happen through Venmo, wire transfers, or ACH deposits nowadays, and most banking activities can be done on like a phone or a website, so it's not necessary to go to a bank. The bar graph, I guess in this section that was the most interesting / concerning to me was only 72% of baby boomers have started saving for retirement, and according to another study, only 55% have. So these are kind of scary low numbers for people looking to retire within the next decade or so. And then one thing that definitely affects the results of these bar graphs, however, is that the survey results are based on people currently in these generations. Obviously, it's not super fair to compare a 22-year-old Gen Zer who just graduated college to someone in their 60s who has been working for years and is planning on retiring in the next decade. So let's compare Gen Z and other generations when they were the same age. Even so, there are like macroeconomic and other like world factors that affected each generation that if I touched on in this video would be a bajillion hours long, but hopefully this is a slightly better comparison. In 2019, roughly 27 or 28% of Gen Zers had exposure to equities, whereas in 2004, when millennials were the same age, only 18.7% of them had exposure to equities. But even though fewer millennials were invested, they had an average portfolio value of $3,200, whereas in 2019 at the same age, Gen Z had an average portfolio size of $950. And I think this can be construed in two ways. The first way is, are millennials doing better because the ones that were invested had more invested? Or is Gen Z doing better because even though each account on average is smaller, more people are investing? Honestly, either point could be argued in my opinion, but I choose to think that Gen Z having more people investing even at a smaller amount is better because to me, getting started, no matter the amount, is better than not starting at all. The last point, according to a retirement survey, is that 70% of Gen Zers have started saving in retirement at the median age of 19, which is actually really awesome. This is compared to millennials with the median age of starting to save at 25, and Gen X and boomers not starting until 30 and 35. It seems that in some aspects, Gen Z is doing better than other generations were at the same age. However, young adults navigating the world financially nowadays also have to deal with potentially crippling student debt, quickly rising home prices, inflation, just to name a few. So who knows? Maybe the world will spontaneously combust next year, so all this will be useless information. Now, the chances of that happening are pretty low, but technically anything is possible, so the probability isn't zero. Anyway, that was a strange tangent. So let's wrap things up. In a brutal battle with finances, how has Gen Z fared? Is it a cop-out to say that it's really hard to tell? We have new and also old financial problems compared to previous generations, and in some metrics we're doing better than other generations at the same age. And as a single human being, regardless of how others are performing, you should be aiming to never stop learning. That being said, I hope you learned something new, and I'll see you guys soon.